When we think of prehistoric rock art, we often think of something that's static and fixed, quite literally set into stone. Today I'm hoping to explore a rather different perspective. It's not far from Midwinter here on the west coast of Scotland, and I'm at Achnabreck in Kilmartin Glen. It's one of the largest and most complex rock art sites anywhere. I'm standing in front of the lowest panel on this gigantic domed outcrop, and this sloping rock surface is covered with the characteristic cup and ring marks which date to the late Neolithic or the early Bronze Age. I say it's a complicated site, and there are a lot of contrasts between the different carved panels, and that's what I'm going to explore today. In contrast, here I am at one of the middle panels at Achnabreck, and I know that there are gigantic cup and ring designs upon the surface of this rock, but I simply can't see them with the angle of the sun as it is, or they're very difficult to see. My shadow is very clear, but as I move around carefully, so that I'm increasingly facing the sun, those motifs suddenly pop into existence. Look at that. Look at how clearly visible they are now. And these are some of the largest rock art symbols known anywhere. This is the upper panel at Achnabreck, and it's one of the most unusual. There's cut marks, some with rings around them, grooves leading out from the centre, and there's a lot of individual cut marks as well. But among these more familiar designs, there are others which are more difficult to see quite often, but are very unusual. One of those is the spiral, and in particular, the horned spiral. Now, this motif very rarely occurs as part of the cup and ring rock art tradition, but instead is more closely associated with monuments like chambered cairns, particularly in Orkney. As well as spirals, there are a few circles which don't have central cut marks. And again, they are very unusual in an open air context on an outcrop of rock like this. They'd more often be associated with built architecture, with monuments. The other thing that's interesting about this panel is that there appears to be a degree of layering between the different elements. And I've done some investigation into this, and it looks very much to me, and has been suggested by other archaeologists, that the spirals and the open circles, those unusual carvings, may be the earliest here and were later overlain by the cup and ring markings. Now, this kind of layering is very, very unusual in open air rock art like this, and it's one of the many things that makes Achnabreck quite unique. One of the other special characteristics, which is fortuitous but I think was observed in the Neolithic, is that the ground plan of this natural outcrop has an axis which points towards the southwest. And that axis is picked up by many of the fissures that cross the surface of the rock, these geological features. They too project towards the southwest. And as can be seen this evening, the southwest just so happens to be the direction of the sunset on the shortest day of the year, the midwinter solstice sunset. What I think is happening here at Achnabreck is that a natural place, a gigantic dome-shaped outcrop, is being treated as if it were a monument by people in the Neolithic. It just so happens that there are quite a few monuments which have a relationship with the sun. May's Howard Orkney is a passage tomb aligned upon the midwinter sunset, and even Stonehenge does the same. So I wonder if people in the Neolithic recognised this as a special location by virtue of this connection being made between the rock and the sun in the sky at this time of year. That could help to explain why there are the spiral carvings here and those circles without cut marks, because they too would be more often associated with built architecture, with places like chambered cairns. Furthermore, the effects of that low winter sun upon the rock art itself is dramatic. I can see in front of me now, as the sun is lowering in the sky towards the horizon, that the shadows, the intensity of the contrast on the surface of the rock is changing. And as those shadows deepen and lengthen, it's making the rock art more visible. First of all, it's the deeper carvings which are most noticeable, the cups and the rings. But as the sun nears the horizon, those very much more unusual markings, the spirals, the circles without the cut marks, they too become more prominent. In fact, they are more prominent, more visible at this time of year than they are at any other, because the sun is low in the sky. And they also show us that rock art is not fixed and static, but becomes animated with light. And as the midwinter sun lowers at the solstice, it reveals through shadow an animation of the history of this site's creation, as earlier carvings which are fainter are revealed. I think this is what makes Achnabreck one of the greatest and most fascinating rock art sites anywhere.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to stay up to date with my ongoing archaeological adventures.